tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Your hat shows you're bad because you're following stupid rules.
A visitor to Canada mocked and berated in a Burnaby parking lot for wearing a hijab. And expect to make more tough choices when it comes to the cost of living and food prices. The dire prediction for where things are headed.
The future of Canadian women's soccer is just going to get even brighter.
Plus, a major moment for women's soccer in Canada, the mystery revealed.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. A Muslim woman visiting BC has been the target of a racist tirade. It happened after her family parked in a customer-only lot in Burnaby. And as Joel Ballard reports, she'd only been in the country visiting her daughter for 2 days before the incident. A warning tonight, this story contains distressing details of Islamophobic behavior and coarse language.
It happened here, in the Wings restaurant parking lot. The woman was waiting for her daughter. Having never seen snow before, she pulled out her camera. That's when the man approached, and she kept filming.
No parking here unless you're going here. You are going there. No good. You're a bad person. You're a bad person.
She told him she didn't speak English, but he continued, zeroing in on her hijab.
Your hat shows you're bad because you're following stupid rules. These are good rules.
He becomes increasingly aggressive.
And you claim to not understand. You obviously understand. You look in my eyes, you understand what I'm saying. You say I don't understand, you're full of shit. You're a liar and a hypocrite. You understand French? Mange la merde. You understand that?
En français, je comprends. Je comprends.
Mange la merde, you stupid hypocrite.
Burnaby RCMP is investigating, and CBC News has agreed to keep the woman and her family's identities confidential to protect them from further abuse.
But when he found out she doesn't speak English, I think he found it as an opportunity, just to speak all of this racist ideas, just because she couldn't understand him.
The daughter and her husband have lived in BC for years and have never felt unsafe, until now.
I'm myself a proud Canadian, my wife too. This is not the Canadian way. This is not how Canadians treat visitors and immigrants. But to be honest, Islamophobia is very real in Canada.
Islamophobia is on the rise in Canada. Hate crimes against Muslims rose 71% in 2021, according to Statistics Canada. Community leaders say women are often the target.
Women who are wearing the outward symbol of their faith, meaning a hijab, a head covering, are a modest clothing, that they are being targeted, that they are being abused. It goes beyond the pale.
The National Council of Canadian Muslims says it receives reports of racism every day.
We really need government and police and all levels of government to tackle this and be assertive and say, hate is not something that we're going to tolerate.
Though difficult, the family chose to share the video publicly to spread awareness.
To be honest, I don't want this to happen to anyone else.
Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
To healthcare now, there's concern tonight about vaccine rates for kids being too low in BC as we're well into flu season. The rise in illnesses has led to long wait times at hospitals. As Mira Baines reports, health officials are now pushing to get more people protected.
As cases of flu and other respiratory illnesses among children soar across the country, hospitals are seeing increased demands for help.
This past week, we've heard from pediatrician colleagues in particular, from BC Children's Hospital and from hospitals around the province, that they're starting to see and hear more about severe cases of influenza and in some cases complications from influenza.
The estimated wait time to see a doctor at Children's Hospital was reported to be over 10 hours on Friday and over 9 hours on Saturday. The hospital briefly called a code orange Saturday morning. It can be used for mass casualty events, but the hospital says it was used to escalate notification for staffing resources. Dr. Henry says the influenza virus has hit BC earlier than previous years. She says children under the age of 5, pregnant women, and people over 65 are more vulnerable to severe illness from the flu. But flu vaccinations among children are low, including kids 6 months to 4 years old.
Amongst those children, we have only 20% have been vaccinated. For those 5 to 11, 20% have been vaccinated. And for our teens, only 15%.
So health officials are again urging people to get children and themselves vaccinated. Ballum says there will be walk-in days at more clinics this weekend. Dr. Henry notes it takes 6 to 8 weeks for the flu to move through the population. This flu cycle is at about week 2, which means the virus will be circulating during the holidays.
Going to want to spend time with family and friends, and that's a situation where we can spread the virus even more. So really important. Now's the time to get this done.
Critics say the province needs to provide more information to parents and guardians.
The public doesn't get to know the absentee rate in schools. The public doesn't get to know the conditions in schools. We need a far better approach than what we're seeing.
While Dr. Henry says she's not prepared to bring back a mask mandate, she does encourage people to wear them if they have flu symptoms. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Let's continue with this and look now at how many kids are sick with the flu in hospital right now. Flu cases started spiking around mid-November. The latest data is from the week of November 20th, and it shows out of 169 kids at BC Children's Hospital with respiratory viruses, 71 had the flu, 43 had RSV. Only 17 young patients tested positive for COVID. More than a third of the kids tested in hospital are coming back positive for this year's dominant flu virus, and that rate is growing, even though it's already higher compared to pre-pandemic averages. And imported over-the-counter kids' medicine has now started to arrive in Canada, and many store shelves are fully stocked. For months, finding kids' Tylenol and Advil has been a struggle for parents. Health Canada has been working to secure more stock. Now, 1 million bottles of product are being distributed to stores. More is expected in the coming days. Well, it's a major milestone for soccer fans and the future of the sport in this country. Canada is going to have its own women's professional soccer league. Renee Filipponi gives us more details on what to expect, including when teams will hit the pitch.
It's with mixed emotions. Soccer star Christine Sinclair cheered on Canada's men at the World Cup, all too aware the opportunities haven't been the same for women. That's about to change.
The idea of a professional league in Canada, it's been floating around and being talked about pretty much since I joined the national team.
Sinclair joined former teammate Diana Matheson to start the league, aware of the potential audience. The two players sat down with the Nationals' Adrian Arsenault to share the news.
Julia Grosso from Vancouver to win it for Canada!
At the Olympics in Tokyo, more than 4 million Canadians watched the women win gold, the most viewed event of the Games. The plan is to start the league in 2025 with 8 teams.
There's about 14 markets we're looking at across Canada, both population size and stadiums. We know we want the right owners, right people investing in those clubs.
Sinclair to the corner, Thorns up 2.
In the U.S., the National Women's Soccer League has 12 teams, and there are a number of other professional leagues in Europe and Asia. More than 100 Canadian women play professional soccer abroad.
The talent here is unbelievable, and once we have these 8 high-performance pathways, the future of Canadian women's soccer is just going to get even brighter.
More than 168,000 girls are registered to play soccer in Canada. The hope is, with the possibility of getting paid to play, even more will be attracted to the sport.
We were, at one point, those little kids looking up to male athletes. And it's time to change the narrative and inspire the next group. I believe kids need to see it to believe that it's possible to happen.
There is no name yet for the league or word on whether Sinclair will hit the pitch in 2025.
We'll see what happens.
Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
A BC man has lost his appeal of convictions related to a so-called revenge porn website he designed to intimidate his ex-wife. In 2017, Patrick Fox was convicted of criminally harassing his ex using a website intended to denigrate, humiliate, and intimidate her, according to court documents. He was later convicted of twice ignoring release orders arising from that sentence and ordered by 2 separate judges to serve time in prison. Fox hoped to have those decisions overturned, but lost by a unanimous decision. A Spanish civil rights group claims it has uncovered a secret Chinese police station right here in Vancouver. The group's claim comes just months after we learned the RCMP is investigating 3 similar stations in the Greater Toronto area. The exact location of the Vancouver station is not yet known. CBC contacted the Chinese embassy, but has not heard back. The embassy has previously described the offices as volunteer-run service stations to process things like driver's licenses. The report, however, claims they are involved with persuading Chinese nationals suspected of crimes to return to the country to face criminal proceedings. All right, tonight, the Vancouver Park Board will vote on removing the Stanley Park Drive bike lane. Now, it was created in June of 2020 as a temporary way for cyclists and cars to share the road through. But since the municipal election, talk of wiping that bike lane away has increased. Municipal Affairs reporter Justin McElroy joins us live from the Vancouver Park Board office. Justin, what are we expecting tonight?
Yeah, well, you can see people wanting to get into this meeting starting at 6:30, and what's going to happen in all likelihood is this new park board is going to pass a motion that's going to get rid of the temporary bike lane that has been in place for more than the past 2 years. Now, on this map, you can see the places on the perimeter of Stanley Park where both a lane for cars and a lane for bikes have been in place since about May, June of 2020. The plan from this new park board is to pass this motion, and then as soon as that happens, they'll ask staff to look at plans for putting in a permanent bike lane of some sort, but that does not have the same issues around accessibility with getting into certain parking lots, as well as some places where people thought that the temporary lane wasn't working quite as well. That report will come in a few months' time, but today this is to get rid of the temporary lane for at least 4 months until that new plan comes in place.
Well, Justin, it seems like we've heard this debate a couple of times. So is tonight's vote actually going to put an end to the bike lane controversy there?
I mean, we'll have to see in the months to come, but if you take a look at this board, this isn't the first time we've had a vote on the future of the Stanley Park bike lane. In fact, it's about the 5th time now in the last 2.5 years. So for people thinking that this is deja vu, there's a little bit of that, but this is a brand new park board. They have 4 years in power now. They have a clear sense of what they want to do with this bike lane, creating a permanent one that doesn't have the same issues as before. So we'll see if they change their minds at all over the next 4 years when events happen. But today is going to be a big step for whatever the future of the bike lane is going to be in Stanley Park.
Well, Justin, we know how much you love sitting through a park board meeting, so we'll let you get inside. Municipal Affairs reporter Justin McElroy, thank you. Well, Vancouver students are closer to having a new seismically safe school, with ground broken today for a replacement to Henry Hudson Elementary.
And I know how important it is for parents to have peace of mind that their kids will be safe at school. And that's why the investment of $33 million to replace Henry Hudson Elementary School is simply critical.
Beyond being seismically safer, the new school will be more accessible as well, with the addition of elevators and parking for people with disabilities. It's expected to be ready to welcome students in the spring of 2025. The federal government is investing $25 million into Vancouver's new Jewish community center. The money will be used to create a community hub, rental housing units, and childcare spaces. It will replace the existing facility and will also house the Vancouver Holocaust Education Center. The federal government says the development will benefit everyone.
Is far beyond the Jewish community. It benefits all communities here. I mean, I picked up my kids from various programs that take place here, from an aquatic center, childcare spaces, and also when it comes to rental housing as well. So it's going to be serving the community in a much larger way.
The Jewish Community Center of Greater Vancouver was built in 1961, and the new development will expand current Oak Ridge site. A rare rainforest outside of Prince George will be preserved for the future generations, thanks to the efforts of a local community group. After learning that logging companies were eyeing the area, they proposed a simple trail designed to offer the forest long-term protection. As Radio Canada's Camille Vernet reports, it's a boardwalk with a beautiful view and a path toward reconciliation.
About an hour away from Prince George, ancient trees, untouched.
This forest has been here for 2, 3, maybe 10,000 years in developing before it became an ancient forest. And it was scheduled to be logged.
In 2005, volunteers built a pathway to draw visitors in to admire the rainforest, hoping to save it.
We tried hard to protect this forest. We just wanted to make this area accessible for everybody.
As people started to pay attention to the forest, so did the provincial government. And in 2016, the land was designated as a provincial park, conserving thousands of hectares of old growth. It's an ecosystem filled with wonders at every corner for this UNBC professor.
It's a lichen with personality, and I think it's the cutest lichen that I know of here. We are still finding new species as we go out into the landscape here. In these temperate rainforests, there are far more species growing above my head, growing epiphytic on the trees, than there are growing on the forest floor.
Darwin is proud of the community for coming together to defend biodiversity.
So in Prince George and McBride and Valemont, communities that are dependent on the forest industry and proud of that part of their heritage, they took ownership of these old forests and said, look, we think this ancient forest site is very important.
But the protected area is only a small fraction of the rainforest. Members of the Clay-Clitenay First Nation say much more needs to be done to protect their lands.
It is still a bit of a battleground, and we're trying to protect beyond the boundaries of the park, because the boundaries of the park aren't enough to protect this unique ecosystem.
Okay, so we're measuring the diameter of this cedar tree here.
These massive trees are located outside of the protected area.
4.4 meters.
The team has been measuring and mapping trees, hoping to add them to the park.
I think we're now realizing that special places such as this are becoming increasingly rare. And if we want our children or our grandchildren, if we want future generations to experience them, we've only got a decade or so to ensure that they're still going to be here.
Along with protecting trees, a reawakening of a nation. The plan also including a new interpretive center to learn about Clay-Clitenay culture.
Now we have an opportunity to highlight and pay people for their unique history and understanding of Plateley culture. And this helps bring a lot of pride into who they are and the area they're in and the work that they're doing.
A boardwalk leading into the forest, providing a path not just for a park, but for reconciliation as well. Camille Vernet, Radio-Canada, Prince George.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with a beautiful backdrop. I imagine that's got to be pretty hard ice now, the way, Joe?
It is, Anita. Yes, beautiful to look at, but it's slippery stuff. This is the snow that's now been around for over a week, and we keep getting the dustings that freeze on top of it. You can sort of hear people trying to shovel it behind me because we've got more ahead with another system moving in overnight tonight, bringing freezing drizzle, a couple of centimeters accumulation tomorrow, and then some rain. So special weather statement in place for parts of the South Coast. Now, this isn't going to go anywhere for a couple of days, but by the end of the week, we might see a lot of the snow disappear with warmer temperatures in the forecast. Take a look at the temperatures right now, though. We're hovering around that freezing mark 1 at YVR, the freezing mark out towards Pitt Meadows and Abbotsford. And we're going to be hovering around these temperatures through the overnight and into tomorrow morning. So the stage is set for some freezing drizzle just in time for the morning commute. And that's because of a couple different things going on. We've got that Arctic outflow I've put there with the yellow arrows. that Arctic cold front that's bringing fresh snow to the interior, and a little system that's going to sneak in to the south coast. So northern and eastern sections of Metro Vancouver, inland sections of the island, and out towards the valley, 2 to 5 centimeters after we get through that freezing drizzle tomorrow morning. Now, it's not a ton of precip. We'll see that rain ramp up as we head into Wednesday, and Anita, more rain on Thursday, and that'll come with some milder temperature. So it's going to be a very different scene by the end of the week, but we're not done with the cold and snow yet, Anita.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, with more cases of avian flu across the province, it might be a little harder to get your hands on a turkey for your holiday feast this season. As Yasmin Gandam reports, the industry says supply is down nearly a quarter.
The holiday season may look a little different this year around the dinner table. An avian flu outbreak means supply of BC turkeys is down.
We are for sure getting short at about 25%, so that's about 250 turkeys that we know right off the bat we're not getting.
Hopkotz owns and operates her family's butcher shop. The shop orders turkeys from local farms. She says a lot of orders have been taken, but there is no guarantee the birds will be on the table come the holidays.
It's still a bit of an unknown for about another week or so. So we've been communicating that with the customers that we're happy to take their order. There's a chance they might not be getting their turkey.
Out at Saanishton Farms, their 50 fresh turkeys are already accounted for. With health and safety measures at an all-time high, farmers have had no choice but to adapt.
In some ways, I likened it to sort of the COVID pandemic we've lived through, where it's kind of similar. We just had to learn to be more careful and be more sanitary and just take extra protocols in how we distance from one another. It's no difference for the animals.
Poultry experts don't expect the avian influenza season to end until the summer, once migration for wild birds comes to a close, but say there is no risk to consuming what you can find.
Consumers can feel assured that you can't get avian influenza from eating poultry products. So you're totally safe eating your Christmas turkey or eggs or chicken.
Small flock poultry owners are also encouraged to prepare in case their birds become sick, with the BC government holding a virtual information session Monday to offer some tips. Since September, it's logged more than 45 cases of avian flu in the province. Despite less gobble-gobble on the dinner table, business owners remain optimistic.
And obviously you want really good food, but there's, that's, I guess, not really what it's about. So, it's just going to be another different holiday like we've had for the past few years.
If you are hoping for turkey during the holidays, though, the advice is to buy whatever you can get your hands on, even if it's frozen. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Pitt Meadows.
It can be a devastating diagnosis, no matter your age, but an Ontario man is determined not to let Alzheimer's define him. A look at his incredible hope and determination next. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. In Yellowknife, the annual holiday toy drive is underway, and this year organizers say they want to provide relief to struggling families financially as a result of the soaring cost of living.
And we'll do it nice and slow. Well, today is the launch of the Northwestel Toy Drive, and this is an annual drive that we do around this time of year, where we collect, where Northwestel collects toys and then just provides them to us to distribute to members of the community. I did good today.
Being able to give back to this community that has given so much to us as individuals, especially those who have lived here, work here, and plan to stay here forever and a day, this means a lot to us.
You have till December 12th to donate toys between the ages of 0 to 13, and we also accept gift cards.
It's preferred that the toys come in unwrapped, because what we do is we set them out on the table and allow the caregivers of the children to come in and select the toy that they want for their child. So they can come down to the Salvation Army, and there's an application process. They can fill out an application for Christmas assistance. There's a number of things that go along with Christmas assistance, but if they need toys specifically, that's identified at the time that they come in, and then the caseworker that's working with them to put the data into the system will then provide them the dates that they can come and do the shopping for their toys. they're just so happy, and we see their faces just light up when they see all the toys there and that they get to select the one for their child. You know, we've had people come in who will, who will be very emotional, because they didn't know what they were going to do. And so the toy drive was a way that they were able to make sure that they brought joy to the children at Christmas time.
Well, in the fight against Alzheimer's disease, an experimental new drug is raising hope. Lecanemab has some promising data to show it could slow cognitive decline. For now, those living with Alzheimer's have no real treatment options for change and the progression of the disease. But as Nick Purdon shows us, that's not stopping some patients from fighting back.
When I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, all the doctor said basically was, I've got bad news for you. You have Alzheimer's and you've lost your driver's license. So there was no, what can I do about it?
That was 8 years ago. And ever since, Ron Robert has made it his mission to fight Alzheimer's and the stigma that goes with it.
I told people, well, for a lot of people in our society, we're now disposable. And that's how a lot of our older people get to think after a while. But I'm out here to prove that we're not disposable, that we can still contribute.
Right. Today, Ron has brought his message to this nursing class at Fanshawe College in London, Ontario. He has advice for them on dealing with people like himself.
Take that 5 minutes to make that patient feel at home. Feel like the doctor wants to know your sympathy, your symptoms.
Now, I'm here to follow Ron and see what I can learn, not just about what it's like to live with Alzheimer's, but from someone who spends every day trying to hold the disease back.
Be there. I'm clapping for you. Hey, it's not about me. It's about you, all of you out there. You make me so cotton-picking proud. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you. Thank you. When I was diagnosed, right away I thought, okay, I know I've got it now, it's certain. And it's a progressive disease. Right. I'm not going to just sit on my butt and let it take over my life. I want to live a full life with or without Alzheimer's.
So Ron decided to do something he'd never done before. At 80, to challenge his brain, he went to university. And what I learned when I go to the library at King's University College with him is that Ron has made an impression.
Oh, look at all these wonderful young people. Oh, I'm so glad to see all you guys. Give me a big hug. I just love being on campus with you guys.
We love having you here.
I've enjoyed it so much.
Have you?
Oh, you guys have no idea how much you've helped me. Sometimes I'm walking around and I get lost. That's one of the symptoms I have for Alzheimer's, is that my sense of direction has gotten all screwed up.
My grandma deals with Alzheimer's and dementia as well. And just from personal experience, I know how difficult and overwhelming that can be. So it's truly inspiring, what you've been able to accomplish.
When I first got diagnosed, not only did I want to help myself, but I wanted to help other people with Alzheimer's.
He is not letting his illness overtake his life, and instead he's inspiring others. I've struggled with my mental health in the past, and so I went into social work to break barriers myself and to show that illnesses don't hold you back, and to hear another story from a separate generation of, you're not alone in this fight.
It's certainly possible for us to do this.
It took 5 years of hard work, and Ron graduated. He says university helped him. And there are studies that show that staying socially and mentally active as we age may lower the risk of cognitive decline. Ron plans to start up classes again in January. The other thing I learned spending time with Ron is how much he relies on his wife of 30 years, Catherine. In a way, she's become his short-term memory.
What worries you about the future?
When he doesn't recognize myself and his children. I know that that's one of the things that he has and he's living well, is that when he doesn't recognize me or his children, he would like to be able to, get the needle and be, taken care of.
Until that day arrives, Ron says he'll be as active as he can be. He won't shy away from his Alzheimer's. In fact, the disease has brought him closer to an old friend of his, who he visits in a long-term care home. Keith Duncan, or Dunk as Ron knows him, has Alzheimer's as well.
Oh, this is a nice little room. I don't remember this room. So what kind of skin is this? Is that a rabbit?
I don't know.
It feels like rabbit.
It's funny you think that I know all this.
Yeah, you did know all that. You've forgotten it all.
But I've forgotten.
Jerry, remember we were here the other day?
No, what the hell were you doing here?
No, we were just sitting here talking. We were talking now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So many times we get
exactly.
Tired up and don't know what we're doing or what we're saying.
Well, you and I have the same symptoms, because you have no short memory, and I have no short memory.
Tell me what it means that Ron comes to visit you here.
We're all buddies. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we weren't buddies, we wouldn't be sitting in one damn room talking.
What's it like to live with Alzheimer's?
Don't live, because it's kind of puzzling. For you, in your own life, whatever you do, you don't know exactly whether to turn right or left or ball or anything.
Does it scare you, the disease?
No, because it's me. It's in me. I can't help it. I don't even think about it. No, I don't know about it because I don't think about it.
That was a good visit. I enjoyed that visit. He did really well.
Yeah?
Yeah, he did super, because usually he does not talk to people.
What does it do for you to come here?
It's good for both of us. He feels good, I feel good, and I think that's what it's all about. And I recognize him as a person and not as an Alzheimer's person, but strictly as a person. I feel like it's almost like a responsibility. When I get up in the morning, I've got a day ahead of me. I have to do something with that day. That day's a gift. That's every day of my life. I'm not going to outlive Alzheimer's. It's going to get me. But I'm going to give it one hell of a run.
Nick Purdon, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Good night.
For more on this, we're joined by Dr. Melissa Lem, who is a family doctor here in Vancouver and clinical assistant professor at the University of British Columbia. Dr. Lem, what are the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease?
A lot of people think of Alzheimer's disease as usual symptoms of memory loss and cognitive changes that happen with aging, but in fact, it's not a normal part of aging. It's a specific disease and it progresses with time because there is no cure. So some of the early symptoms of Alzheimer's are usually memory loss for recent events, and then that can progress to loss of vocabulary and also loss of the ability to remember how to do tasks. Executive function can also be affected with Alzheimer's, so the ability to plan, organize, and multitask, and then maybe most distressing for caregivers, later on in the course of the disease, people can start to have trouble with sleep and start to wander and even become aggressive and have hallucinations or delusions.
So you mentioned there's no cure, but is there any sort of, I guess, medication or treatment to slow the progression?
The best treatment for Alzheimer's is definitely early detection, because then you can get connected to treatments and different community supports that can slow down the progress of the disease. So in terms of actual medications that are available, they have modest success at treating it. So they include cholinesterase inhibitors and memantine. But in fact, last week, an interesting trial came out that showed a new medication that targets the amyloid plaques, specifically that are found in the brains of people with Alzheimer's, slowed the progression of the disease by a pretty significant 27% over the 18-month course of the trial. So there were side effects that happened, like brain swelling, which thankfully didn't cause many actual symptoms in patients, and also some brain bleeds in some patients. Also, it's a very expensive medication that will probably cost tens of thousands of dollars per year. But it is groundbreaking because it slowed the progress more than any other treatment so far. So we'll be keeping a close eye on this.
Yeah, good news for sure. What are some of the risk factors for people?
The interesting thing about Alzheimer's dementia is it goes very closely hand in hand with vascular dementia, which, as the name would suggest, is issues with blood vessels that reduce blood flow to the brain. So anything that increases your risk of cardiovascular disease, so that would be like diabetes, high blood pressure, being overweight, lack of exercise, will also increase your risk of developing Alzheimer's disease.
And just quickly here, you talked a little bit about some of the things to prevent it, I guess, being active and living a healthy lifestyle. Is there anything else?
Being socially connected is really important. So one of the risk factors for Alzheimer's is loneliness and social isolation. So especially as we move into the holiday season, we have to think about making sure we spend time with older family members, because it's those social connections that keep our brains young. But we have to remember, too, to make sure that you wear masks indoors, make sure you're vaccinated, stay home when you're sick, to make sure that we're socializing safely during the pandemic.
Dr. Lem, thank you.
Thanks.
Canada's first full-scale electric vehicle manufacturing plant opens, but will it help supercharge the economy? More after the break.
Every time Robert William Pickton makes a court appearance, the media is out in force to cover every turn, every nuance of the case.
Can you give us an outline of the preliminary?
But more than a month before his preliminary hearing is set to begin, another hearing is about to get underway. Pickton's lawyer will go to court this week to ask for something extraordinary.
The judge will have to consider whether he can close the courtroom completely, whether that's acceptable in the circumstances.
Ritchie says the regular publication ban may not be enough.
We're all worried, concerned that the evidence from the preliminary hearing may get out in public and influence a potential jury pool.
So Ritchie will ask for the preliminary hearing to be held behind closed doors. No families, no public, no media.
It's very unusual to have an in-camera hearing, like in other words, closed-door court proceeding.
Dan Burnett will be fighting Ritchie's application for the CBC.
The majority of people there are going to be Canadians and Canadian media who, based on the track record, can be trusted with the information. If the problem relates to a small select group, then deal with that small select group. Don't shut out the entire Canadian public effectively from the room.
That small select group is the American media. It was American media who broke a publication ban and published evidence in the trial of Paul Bernardo nearly 10 years ago.
Tonight, The Vanishing.
U.S. network programs, local stations from Washington state, and American newspapers have been covering the Pickton case very closely. And there's concern they'll ignore the publication ban and broadcast details of the case against Pickton. But for the families who have been attending court until now, that's not a good enough reason to keep them out.
My right to be there
the right of the other families and the public to be there, I think is important, and I intend to protect that right.
Ernie Cray has hired a lawyer to help him do that.
We all fully expected to be able to sit in that courtroom. We've prepared ourselves emotionally and psychologically to be there. And the things that are going to be talked about in the preliminary are of importance to us personally.
The American media will be represented by their own lawyer in court. He refused to say in advance what his arguments will be. The hearing is scheduled to last all week, and in the end, the judge will have to decide who, if anyone, gets to be in the courtroom when the preliminary hearing begins in January. Melissa Fung, CBC News, Vancouver.
Let's take a look now at Canada's first full-scale electric vehicle manufacturing plant. It's in Ontario, and as Anita Bathe reports, leaders expect this undertaking to help supercharge our country's economy.
For decades, these workers built gas-powered cars. Now the vehicles they're rolling off the assembly line are all electric.
Our intent is to ramp up as quickly as possible. We have very high demand for these vehicles.
The plant in Ingersoll, Ontario will now produce BrightDrop electric delivery vans for customers including FedEx, Walmart, and Hertz in the U.S., as well as DHL in Canada.
The next decade, you're going to see an onslaught of electric vehicles. You'll see continued investment in Canada because we are all in for the future.
The factory closed in May to be retooled into a $1 billion facility, partially funded by $500 million from the provincial and federal governments combined.
We're focused on making sure we're competitive.
The investment's meant to ensure Canada's auto sector doesn't fall behind as the U.S. pushes forward with huge subsidies to secure clean energy jobs. Analysts say Canada has been holding its own, with companies like Stellantis and LG committing billions of dollars in recent months to build EVs or make batteries here.
They're well positioned to get more than their share. I think Mexico might be behind at the moment.
If Canada can keep up this momentum, it could mean shifting fortunes for auto workers.
Canada is a very mineral-rich country. We're, proximity to the United States, and establishing the battery supply chain within North America is a significant opportunity.
In Ingersoll, 400 staff have been retrained to build EVs. As many as 1,600 could be on the job by the end of next year.
We'll actually have to hire for the third shift, which is good news for people looking for work.
After enduring years of uncertainty from a declining auto sector, for these auto workers, there's a clearer road ahead. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Ingersoll, Ontario.
A judge has found Major General Danny Fortin not guilty of sexual assault. He is the former head of the federal government's COVID vaccine campaign, and the allegations stretched back to 1988 rather. Ashley Burke has the story and a warning some viewers may find the details disturbing.
How are you feeling going into the courthouse today? A Quebec judge has acquitted Major General Danny Fortin of one count of sexual assault from an allegation tied to 1988 when he was a cadet at Royal Military College. The judge in this case said that he did believe the complainant was sexually assaulted, but was not convinced without a reasonable doubt that it was Fortin who was the culprit.
We're not completely happy with such a verdict. We think that the evidence that we submitted was enough for an accusation and a condemnation. Now, I think the judge decided to permit the accused to benefit from the doubt.
The complainant had alleged that she was horrified to awake in bed in 1988 to a man standing over her. She said that the man had her hand on his hand and was using it to masturbate. Fortin had maintained that he was innocent and said that he never stepped foot in her room or had any physical contact with the woman. He was seen after the ruling was given today, hugging his wife and others in the courtroom.
I am so relieved by the judge
decision today. As you would expect, this is a huge burden off our shoulders, my shoulders and that of my family. This is one important step in an ongoing process to prove my innocence and recover my reputation.
Fortin maintains that he was wrongfully dismissed from his role as the head of Canada's vaccine rollout last year with the Public Health Agency of Canada. He now has a federal court of appeal case that's going to be going on in the coming months, and he said he's also considering if there are other legal options, but at this point is not considering leaving the military. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Gatineau.
The warning to brace for even bigger grocery bills in 2023. Why farmers and other food producers say they're not to blame. Coming up.
Do you know anyone who prefers to be called they instead of she or he? It might just be because they identify as non-binary. But what does that mean? Well, it's all about pronouns. A pronoun is a word like they, them, their, she, or he that helps us describe ourselves and other people. They, them, and their are gender-neutral pronouns because they're not specific to girls or boys. Binary and non-binary are words that have to do with gender. We use these words all the time, like she builds spaceships in her spare time, or he rides a pirate ship to his school. Sure. Some pronouns usually refer to girls, like she or her, and some usually refer to boys, like he or him. But if someone doesn't feel like a girl or a boy, they might use a non-binary pronoun like they, them, or their. So instead of saying he or she, you might say they trained a robot to do their homework.
The answer is 5.
This allows a person to choose the pronoun that feels right for who they are. It's all about what someone feels they are on the inside, and not about how they act or what they wear on the outside. So, how do you know which pronouns to use? When you meet someone, you can tell them which pronouns you prefer. Or, if you don't know what pronouns someone prefers, just ask, what pronouns do you use? As you can see, gender is a rainbow. The important thing to remember is that we all want to be accepted for who we are.
All right, Joe, we know rain is on the way, but is it too early to start asking for a white Christmas, or at least the lead up to Christmas?
It is not too early. I know, I mean, you just generally love snow, but you're not alone. It was so magical last year having the snow with La Nina. So since we're in a La Nina this year, chances are up. And Anita, I am seeing another shot of snow around December 14th, even though we have to get through snow turning into rain tomorrow, a couple of days of rain. We might see a lot of what's behind me melt, but I think it's going to come back. Usually, by the way, Metro Vancouver has about a 9% chance in recent decades anyway of a white Christmas, but chances are up this year because of La Nina. So let me show you the current temperatures right now. You can really see where that Arctic air mass is in place. Across the prairies, it's minus 26 right now in Winnipeg, minus 20 and through Regina. We're seeing some of that Arctic air move west across the province, and you can see that sort of sliver of purple. That's the snow that's hitting Prince George, hitting the Shuswap, northern Okanagan sections, where you'll see 10 centimeters through tomorrow. This is the system that will bring the heavier rain for Thursday for the south coast, and some more snow for the interior. Keep the rain going through Friday and the weekend, and you can really see that rain-snow line, the divide between the green and the purple, sort of lying right on the coast. So we'll see a couple of mixed bag days as we head into Saturday and Sunday before this low pressure system drags down some colder air for about a week from now. That's when it looks like we'll get back into that Arctic air mass. Quite mild though, and through the interior. Places like Fort St. John, you're going from a minus 21 tomorrow to a minus 2 on Wednesday as we see that Arctic air mass retreat. So really just looking to see that freezing rain tomorrow morning in Metro Vancouver. Not a lot of precip though, maybe a couple centimeters for higher elevations. More like showers on Wednesday, steadier rain for Thursday, the mixed bags for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then Anita, we start that climb out back into the cold, crisp, and snowy air that I know you and I like.
Yeah, we got to get through that soggy forecast.
Yes.
So first. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, the high cost of food is already squeezing the budgets of many Canadians, and a report today predicts grocery bills will continue to rise next year as much as 7%. Philippe de Montigny is looking at the tough choices consumers may have to make.
Cutting down on food costs has been a challenge for Julie Highland.
In order to stay within our budget now, we eat a lot less meat, and I definitely shop a lot more sales and plan my menus around what's on sale.
The mother of 3 also uses food waste apps to buy nearly expired items at a steep discount. The challenge, though, isn't going away soon. A new report suggests the average Canadian family with 2 teenagers will spend close to $16,300 on food next year, up more than $1,000.
There's absolutely no safe place at the grocery store. You can't really seek any sort of immunity against food inflation right now.
Some families are having to consider even tougher choices.
Maybe we'll have to look out food banks. It's unfortunate that it has come to that, and I guess I'm hoping that we don't have to.
Farmers and other food producers say they're not driving higher prices.
I saw an 8-pound prime rib roast going for $200. Well, when we're selling wholesale cattle into that market, we're not seeing that kind of price ourselves. There's a lot of in-between stuff where the inflation happens.
This cattle rancher says rising interest rates are also squeezing many producers running on a line of credit.
Those rates, like you see them jump, 3.5%, 4%. That's a huge difference.
The good news is market pressures should ease in the second half of 2023, according to the report, echoing what some forecasters are predicting.
We're not expecting prices to drop, but we are expecting the food inflation rate to stabilize somewhat.
A result, he says, of a slowing economy.
There you go.
For this Calgary family, there's not much fat left to trim from the food budget.
We've already cut back so much, and at this rate, I don't know what sacrifices we can continue to make just to cope with the rising costs.
Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, music streaming services are serving customer data back at them for year-end lists. How does this wrap in the line between service and surveillance? Eli Glasner takes a look.
By himself snaps it in. When a woman gets a job in a sport, it shouldn't really have to make headlines.
Hi, I'm Sandra Prusina. I'm the play-by-play voice of the Calgary Wranglers. The city, the fans have really embraced the Wranglers. Calgarians who cheer for the Flames are really curious about the future. They want to see Dustin Wolf, they want to see Matthew Phillips, draft picks of the Flames, and see them eventually come up to the big club. I want to be a connection between the fans and this team and this organization. I'm a born and raised Calgarian. This is my city, this is my home. I consider this my arena, and I went here as a kid, as an adult, watching the Flames for many, many years. I decided to pursue a profession in broadcasting, and I've been in broadcasting, gosh, almost a decade and a half now. Always in sports journalism, though. As a child or even as a teenager, I never saw a woman doing play-by-play. It was always a dream, but I never thought that dream would be a reality. I have had to deal with a little bit of pushback. I know maybe people in this market don't mind because they're used to my voice. They've heard it on the radio for many, many years. But other markets, I don't know if they're ready to hear a woman doing play-by-play of a men's professional sport. I have read some comments online, and that's one of those mental hurdles that I need to get over and realize that not everybody's going to like you, and you need to focus on pleasing the people that are the fans of the team and the people that hired me and the players and the coaches, and that's really what matters to me. I just want there to be a point where it's not seen as groundbreaking. I just want it to be normal. There have been lots of women before me who have really taken it on the teeth to give these opportunities to me, and then the women that will come after me. Sports are sports at the end of the day, and these are all athletes, and I'm just excited to be the one voicing their stories and being the storyteller and being the voice of the Calgary Wranglers. It is honestly a true honor because the name of this booth here is Peter Marr, and he was the longtime voice of the Calgary Flames. He's the voice that I listened to as a little girl, as a teenager, as an adult. I don't know if I can really verbalize what it means to be standing in his booth, because I never imagined that that would be possible.
On behalf of all of us here at CBC British Columbia, thank you.
Thank you for making the season kind.
Thank you for your generosity, for caring,
for giving hope.
Your donations are so much appreciated.
You made a difference to British Columbians who need help. Well done.
Some sad news to share tonight. Emmy Award-winning actor Kirstie Alley has died. Alley rose to prominence in the late 80s and early 90s, playing the role of Rebecca Howe on the hit NBC sitcom Cheers. Her performance won an Emmy in 1991. Her children have tweeted that the star died of cancer that was only recently discovered. She was 71 years old. All right, well, Drake and Taylor Swift were among the most streamed artists on Spotify this year. That's according to the streaming service's Wrapped campaign, where people can share who they've listened to the most. As Eli Glasner shows us, the recognition can have a big impact on artists as well.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Sure, it's December, but if you're a Spotify user, Wrapped is what makes it wonderful. What began as a simple feature in 2015 has grown into a cultural phenomenon. Every year around this time, the streaming music service gives users a personalized look at their listening habits, with everything from most played artists, songs, and even their listening personality. Mine is the adventurer. It also shares the musicians that got the most streams. At the top of the list for the third year running, Bad Bunny.
Every year I start, the flood of like fans tagging me and their posts start happening and I go, oh, it's today.
Wrapped is a big deal for musicians like Ralph who get their own breakdown.
It is a really important and interesting summary to remind you like, oh, wow, okay, I didn't know people in, like Turkey were listening to my music. That's amazing.
And all those happy fans sharing their lists pays off.
You do see a bump when
Big time. Yeah, big time. Like Edamame was streaming like, let's say like 270 a day. And yesterday it did like 400. So it's, yeah, for no reason really. It's just people are like, oh, reminded again that I listened to Baby No Money all year.
The sharing doesn't change the fact that Spotify pays musicians a tiny fraction for all their streams, but Ralph says the streamer is helping musicians in other ways.
So I think it's cool that now on Spotify you can plug in your merch pieces as an artist. You can plug in, a little message. Hey, my concert's coming up on Friday.
It's so popular, other platforms such as Apple Music and YouTube have created their own versions.
You know what's so funny? We have seen tweets from people saying, I'd like to see the same thing from Netflix. I'd like to see the same thing from Goodreads. Could you imagine if Uber Eats did this wrap up for the end of your year of all the stuff you ate?
But all the pretty colors and playlists cover up the fact Spotify has taken personal surveillance and turned it into a selling feature.
There's a hunger, if you'll put it that way, for people. If you're going to use my data, make it worth my while. And it seems that's kind of what Spotify has hit the nail on the head with. Hi, it's Taylor.
A sign of the times as users flock to the app to see how they stack up. Eli Glaster, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, my top artists this year, Fleetwood Mac, The Beatles. I have a bit of an old soul, but I have snuck in something a little newer, Chris Stapleton in there for you country fans. On that note, that is CBC Vancouver News tonight. We end tonight's show with a live look at Whistler. A beautiful evening there, snow on the ground, people skating.